We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
He's Tony. I'm Mike. We're here for a Christmas special. So here we are, episode 1 of our Christmas special. These Three Kings, Viva Las Vegas. So surprisingly good, surprisingly entertaining. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this film. Spoilers, I did. This movie was released in 1964 on a budget estimated about $1 million. It brought in 9.4 million gross worldwide. Was directed by George Sidney.
Yes. He's the guy who made Anne Margaret famous because he also directed Bye Bye Birdie, which was her big. That was the movie that made Anne Margaret a star. Period! Exclamation point.
Well, they tried making her a star before that, but we'll get to that in a second. So he did Bye Bye Birdie. He was active from like 1937 to 1967. So he had a good 30-year career.
Yeah.
A bunch of movies. Let's see here. It was produced by Jack Cummins and George Sidney. Written by Sally Benson, who's from St. Louis. Yeah. Her career is active from 1943 to 1966. She appropriately wrote Meet Me in St. Louis. And she also wrote Shadow of a Doubt, as well as a bunch of other classics from time period.
This was for 1964 money. This was an expensive movie, and this was them legitimately getting top talent across the board. They knew what kind of movie that they were making. They got a director of solid hits. They got a writer of solid hits. They had two of the most charismatic stars that they could get their hands on, and they were at the absolute peak of their firepower as far as where they were professionally at this point. It was known at this point that Elvis put asses in seats and Anne Margaret put asses in seats. There's no denying that they knew they were trying to make a hit film, and they did.
Yeah. So. Yes, they did. So speaking of our stars, we have Elvis Presley, the King, as Lucky Jackson, and Margaret as Rusty Martin. Who, like you said, was in Bye Bye Birdie. Obviously, this film, The Cincinnati Kid, Carnal Knowledge, Train Robbers, Tommy, The Who.
Yeah.
Grumpy Old Men and Grumpier Old Men. But Anne Margaret actually got her start as a singer before she did films. But her career didn't last very long. They pulled the plug on her in RCA like in 61 or 63, her recording contract went out. Yeah. And they tried to bill her as the next Elvis Presley, or the female Elvis Presley. And I can see that. Sure. The girl can sing, she can dance.
Wildly charismatic.
Yeah.
There's no other. There are plenty of attractive women in movies from back in the day. There are plenty of handsome men back in the day. But the thing is with Elvis and Anne Margaret, it's effortless. I mean, like literally, they're doing next to nothing, and they just jump off of the screen in this movie. Like this movie, Elvis oozes cool like no one's business, and Anne Margaret oozes effortlessly sexy like nobody that has ever been put on film before or after this. That the first scene where she drives up in that car, and all you see is her legs from underneath the car. You're like, that's Anne Margaret, and that's all you needed to know. So it's like sincerely, this is just, it's genuinely, it is a fun movie about two people that are just effortlessly cool, and it all comes through on camera. There's nothing about this that feels indulgent or excessive. It's all just like, that's
There's some scenes that are a little excessive, slightly indulgent, but on a whole, it works for what it is. I mean, it's Elvis. It's a musical, so I'll give it a little bit of leeway.
But I was gonna say, like this is weirdly, this is the most expensive Elvis movie that was ever made. And because Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's manager at the time, he kind of took offense at the fact that like a lot of Anne Margaret's numbers in the movie were multiple camera setups and like multiple shots and like, taken from different. He took offense that that money was spent on that, whereas as weirdly when Elvis does Viva Las Vegas in the film at the talent show, that's all done in one single take, and it was one take. Like they set it up and they shot it, and that was that. And why? Because he's fucking Elvis. That's why. You don't need a second take. Period. But yeah. So because
He took a
because
shot of
that,
whiskey, popped a couple pills, dude. He was on that shit.
I'm just saying, the people in Las Vegas had to love this film because, man, they made Las Vegas seem like the coolest place on the planet.
And the funny thing is this is when you're watching it through 2020 eyes and they're cruising down the strip, it's like, okay, you're cruising down Main Street Festus with just a little bit more lights. It is not impressive at all.
To 1964 eyes, I'm sure that was absolutely mad. And the thing is, that's the other thing too. You're right. It's like all the casinos are very small. There's no like huge towering buildings or anything like that. But it's shot so well. And like the lights fill up all the screens. Like the cinematography is absolutely stunning in this movie. So they really did make Las Vegas seem like this dreamy, super cool place. And even though it's like even now, architecturally speaking, and from a light standpoint, there's a lot more going on in Las Vegas now than there ever was back then. Yeah. But they made, and weirdly, Las Vegas is seen now as kind of like this seedy place where, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And no, we don't talk about it. You can, get indulge your weird, crazy, freaky side. That's how it's Vegas is right now. Here it's shown like, this is where good things happen, where, if you're lucky and, good things, and you'll meet beautiful women and have good food. And so
it's almost it's almost like a family thing because Anne Margaret teaches kids how to swim.
Yeah.
So it's like Disneyland in the desert.
Pretty much. And weirdly, they don't show a lot of gambling in the movie.
No.
So
at the very beginning, and that's it, where Elvis's first. Well, here, the perfect time to jump into the plot.
So, well, I mean, the very first shot of the movie is like literally Elvis is walking into a casino and he's walking past like all the, blue hair old ladies that are like, hammering the slot machines. And he walks over and he goes to the craps table and, you see him lift his hand up with the dice in it and he gives it the shake and you see the hand come down. And the next thing you know, they're cutting to a phone call in a garage somewhere in Las Vegas. And it's Elvis's buddy. And he's calling to let him know, hey, I've got the money for the engine. And or is the garage in Los Angeles or is it in Las Vegas?
The garage is in Vegas.
Okay, the engine is in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So but he calls his buddy. He's like, I've got it. I've got the money for the engine, and we're definitely going to be in the race, so we can pick the engine up, and we'll be good to go for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And in the course of this whole exchange, I'm trying to remember what happens.
Introduced to the Italian driver.
The Count.
The Count. And since I was out of the car, let's take a peek at your car, Count. And It's funny because they go underneath the car. It's like you're not going to see anything of real importance underneath the car until you see Anne Margaret's legs, and they're like, "Okay, now I understand why they set the shot like this."
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Count is trying to get Elvis. He has seen
Trying to get Elvis
Elvis's
to work on his
career.
car.
Yeah, he's seen Lucky's career. He knows that Lucky is a real talented driver, that he's an up and coming guy, and he wants Elvis to drive for his team. And you know, he's basically saying, "Look, you drive, you run interference. I'll get the big win. We'll split the money. Blah 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 blah." And you know, Elvis is like, "Hey, I only drive one way. I drive to win, and that's all there is to it." And that's when they're like, "Well, you need to see how great my car is," and that's it. It kind of plays into it. It's definitely set up, obviously so, but it is a appropriate setup. And again, when Anne Margaret's legs come into shot, there's no mistaking that that's Anne Margaret. There is no trust me. If this movie answers the question, what do men really want? What do they really, really want? And the answer is Anne Margaret. So, um, uh, so they climb out from underneath the car, and Anne Margaret is having car trouble. And, you know, Elvis is being Elvis. He's looking underneath the hood, and he's got the Count over there. And they're like, you know, "Oh, yeah, no, there's a big problem with your car. It may take a day, possibly two. We're going to have to we might even have to take the whole engine out of the car to really get this thing up and going again." And she's like, "Oh, well, whatever will I do?" And he's like, "Well, I'll drive you anywhere." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So he runs in to get out of his grease-stained coveralls. And, you know, anybody else having, you know, a dress shirt and dress pants underneath greasy garage, you would think, "Oh, no, that would never happen." With Elvis, you're like, of course that's what he's wearing underneath that. What else would he be wearing? He's not going to be wearing like some wife beater and some, you know, tan chinos. He's Elvis. Of course that's what he's wearing. So, but in the amount of time it takes him to strip off his overalls and come running back out, the Count, who's a bit of a sadist, well, he's fixed Anne Margaret's car and she has driven off, and Elvis is, you know.
Well, you say the Count's the sadist, but yeah, here Elvis was willing to rip off this poor girl just so he could spend a couple days with her.
I'm gonna disagree. Elvis is a stand-up guy.
Don't fucking cover for the fucking.
He was not going to rip her off.
Don't cover for fucking Lucky. I'm sorry, Elvis. I know it's a good name. Don't cover for fucking Lucky here. Lucky was a shyster motherfucker. He was gonna lie to this poor girl. He may not actually charge her anything in bullshit, you know, but still, he's being very deceitful.
Well, okay, was he being deceitful? Yes, but he was going to basically just try to find out what her name was, and he was basically gonna try to make goo-goo eyes at her. And you know what? If it had been anybody other than Elvis, it would have been kind of shystery, kind of greasy, kind of. But it's Elvis, and that's all I need to say. And the thing that's funny is like that whole bit at the very beginning, they're looking underneath and trying to get the engine to turn over, and they're looking at each other, and like the chemistry between those two is just like oozing off the screen. So it's like, I'm going to let this go. It's not even stalk. If anybody else tried to do it, it would be stalkery and creepy and weird, but it's Elvis. So deal with it. But
so I think next, doesn't he follow her like, oh, they go out to try to find her.
Yeah.
Him and the Count, and then they hit up all the bars. And I love how they sit down for the first one, they watch the show and all that stuff. Like, okay, so they go to the next one. And after a while, they don't bother sitting down at the show anymore. They start going backstage and just checking all the girls and all that shit.
Well, the line of thinking
is... get thrown out of the club.
Yeah, well, the line of thinking is, with legs that great, she has to be a showgirl if she works here in Vegas. He did find out with this conversation that she does live in the area. So, you know, he's putting 1 and 1 together and coming up with 7. So, but yeah, no, it's a classic.
Well, actually, he shoots craps because he doesn't find her.
You're right.
But we do get a great musical number where they go in there to the honky tonk bar, and they're trying to get the showgirls up there, but they can't get them up there because all the fucking Texans won't get the fuck off the stage. So we had Elvis go in there and sing his Texas tune, And he forms a little Texas conga line and walks about the door into the back of a fucking steak flatbed. And off they go.
And off they go.
And then they bring out the Asian girls, and I was like, well, what the fuck? And he gets pissed off.
That like sincerely, there's some genuinely laugh out loud moments in this movie, and they're kind of peppered through. But so he goes back to the Count's hotel room. And
yeah. I think he crashes there that night, and then the next morning he's getting ready to leave, but he hears a voice outside. He looks outside the window, and there's Anne Margaret giving fucking pool lessons.
Yeah, she's giving swimming lessons to the little kids, and Elvis, being Elvis, is all like, "Hey, Count, can I borrow your guitar, baby? and I'm gonna go outside and maybe sing a little bit," because he's Elvis. And okay, sure. You got a guitar and Elvis asks, you just give it to him and just write it off. And so Elvis goes outside and he sees Anne Margaret, and he tries to chat with her, and her swimming lesson is over with, and she's going to her pool house where she's going to change clothing, and Elvis is hitting it hard. It is a great musical number between the two of them.
It's really good.
And they're duetting back and forth. She loves me, but she doesn't know it yet. And she's all like, yeah, he wishes. And it ends up with them going up onto the diving board, and Anne Margaret basically singing Elvis out onto the diving board, and then him falling off and into the swimming pool, which it's cute, it's cheeky, it's fun. But important plot point here, the wad of cash that Elvis had won to pay for the engine for the race car gets dropped into the swimming pool. And then you see like some kid swim down, and he grabs the wad of bills, and you're thinking, oh, that kid's going to rip Elvis off. No, the kid undoes the rubber band and folds the bills out, and they get sucked into the pool filter. And so the kid, I suppose, is somewhat innocent. We're like letting him off the hook a little bit. He just found it. We don't know if he was going to steal the money or not, but the money is gone. It's out of there. Anyway. So Elvis's friend shows up at the hotel, and he's like, I need the money for the engine. I got to go to Los Angeles and get the engine right away. And Elvis is reaching into his pocket while he's standing in front of the manager for the hotel, getting ready to pay his bill. And he realizes that his money is gone. So not only can he not pay his hotel bill, but he can't get the engine either. So they've run up quite a bit of a tab on the hotel's dime, and to work their tab off, they take jobs as waiters at the hotel. So, which is kind of funny, but the Count,
it works really well.
It works really well, but the other thing that I enjoy about this is that the Count is all like, look, come drive for me and I'll pay your tab off. And Elvis is like, no, I'm going to make my own way. I'm going to do this my way. And so, what the hell's the next scene after that?
Well, really, at this point, it's just about, I mean, really, let's get down to brass tacks. So, at this point, it's one scheme after another to try to make a quick buck so they can buy the engine. They do he does like one talent show, and then he does another talent show, and all this time he's trying to woo Anne Margaret.
Well, actually, you're forgetting the greatest date sequence in cinema history here, because he does ask her to go out on a date. She finally agrees to it. He asks her if she wants to go dancing, and she agrees to go dancing, and he goes. She's like, it's like, where are you at? Where can I pick you up? And she says the University of Nevada. And so that leads to another really fun dance and number. And then my favorite song in the movie is actually this part right here, when he's on stage and he's rocking out and he's singing to Anne Margaret, and they have like the whole group of students in there. That is my favorite song in the film. It's a great sequence. It's really well done. And again, it's Elvis doing his like one take magic, because he's fucking Elvis and you're not. And so they do that, and then they go out on a date, and they go dancing proper. And I just remember like she agrees to go. They have a day off together.
Yeah.
and she agrees to spend the day with Elvis. They're going to go out and they're going to do their whole thing, and like their date, they start off skeet shooting, which Elvis has obviously never done, but Anne Margaret is, Annie Oakley. She's just blowing shit out of the sky, and then that's not enough. Then they got to go water skiing, and then they then like they explain it. I'm thinking, damn, how much the waiters make back in the day? Because then they're like, Elvis is like, let's go for a flight. Let's go on the helicopter, and and then they do explain that one, saying that
he has an army buddy.
and
he was a sergeant, and this guy served underneath him or something like that, and they stay in touch.
Yeah. Well, I believe Elvis phrases it as, every once in a while he lets me show up and boss him around a little bit. So, and then because of that, we get like the whole flyover of like all the big sites that are around Las Vegas. So we get to see Hoover Dam, and we get to see like the lake where all the yachts and all that are kept. And they stop to let Anne Margaret change clothes so that they can then go dancing. And then we have, Elvis doing his Elvis thing.
You meet the dad at that scene.
He does meet the dad. And it's a fun, charming little scene. And then they go out dancing, and they get done with their date. And again, it's the greatest date sequence ever. That date had to cost like, in today's money, it would be like $180,000 date.
That is a oh god, what the fuck's his name? I can't believe I forgot already. That's an Edward date. That's an Edward taking the poor prostitute out on a date.
So
Edward Lewis.
Absolutely. You know what?
Our destroyer of businesses and people's lives and
anyway. Hollywood Boulevard prostitutes. So. But okay, so in the version that we watched, they get done with the date and Elvis takes her home, and goes in and I think they're, I don't know if they're planning on going out like even later after this, after their whole big fly around the town and whatnot. But then Elvis sits down at the piano and he has this like really great love song that he does. And then Anne Margaret comes out and they look at each other and they have that like chemistry. And again, it's Elvis and Anne Margaret oozing off the screen. And if it was any two other people, you'd be all like, but it's not. It's Elvis and Anne Margaret. So you're like, all right, I'll watch this. I'm cool with this. And then I want to say they go out, like, did they go dancing at the club with the round stage where like they're both dressed in yellow?
I don't remember when exactly in the movie this happens. Unfortunately, I watched it 2 days ago,
so the order of events are slightly askew.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's becoming very obvious that Anne and Elvis are falling for one another, and
but there's a problem with all this. Anne Margaret does not like Elvis racing, and
yes,
she does her best. So the whole rest of the movie to try to get him to quit and I never really see. She never really says a reason other than it's just that it's dangerous. But does she get like any specifics of why?
She has a conversation with the Count, and they're talking about race car drivers. And she brings up a driver by name, and he says, like, oh yeah, he was unlucky, which is to say he got killed in a car accident. And that is what makes Anne Margaret basically, say, maybe you should give this up. Maybe you don't want to do this. And it's a legitimate reason. I mean, she doesn't want him to die, but this was, the early 60s. Race car driving back then, and as is shown later in this film, was amazingly dangerous. It's not like nowadays where there's like a 5-point roll cage and harnesses that strapped you in. Bullshit. You were wearing a football helmet and some goggles, and if that shit rolled over, well, you know what? We need a new driver. Oh, and a new car.
Here's the other thing is the school of thought back then was there's no seatbelts because you want to be ejected from the car so you didn't burn the fuck up in it. Because Because if you got trapped in the car back then, they weren't designed for safety. They're designed for fucking speed, for all-out performance. Yeah, you're just along for the ride until you hit a fucking train. You're ejected the fuck out, and then hopefully you fucking live and then burn up in the car. But yeah, it wasn't until really probably about the late 70s, early 80s, where they started focus on safety, and then really got hammered home when Dale Earnhardt died. The drivers knew the risk back then. They knew it was a dangerous fucking thing. Yeah. But back then, F1 drivers and racers and things like that, man, they were the fucking shit. They were rock stars back in that day. Watch the movie Rush with oh goddamn, what was their names?
Thor.
Chris Hemsworth and
it's Chris Hemsworth
and Baron Zemo from the Avengers movie, where they play Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Yeah, good historical rivalry. It's a good movie. Poor Ron Howard. I don't know why his movies don't do very well. It was a good movie.
It was a really phenomenal movie, and Ron Howard is at his best when he's doing historic pieces like Apollo 13, and Cinderella Man. And I don't know, Ron Howard seems to like hit or miss. He either lands a movie that's a solid runaway hit and everybody loves it, or he does something and I don't know, either it's not marketed well. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. He's the only director I can think of like that.
Bad reviews. It just didn't get any press at all.
Yeah, well, it was like audience interest was nothing on that film, and I'm stunned because Ford v Ferrari was like usually lauded. I'm thinking, this is Rush. And Rush was actually better than this. Yeah, so I don't get it, but I got nothing. I guess it was how it was advertised, or it was the fact that it was two European racers. A German and a Brit, as opposed to an American racer, Carroll Shelby, and his. I guess that was the whole thing. That was why American audiences didn't take.
Yeah, there's no Americans in it, and F1 is not an American sport. F1's a European sport.
I get it, but again, Rush was phenomenal. It's a great comeback story. It's a great rivalry story. It is impeccably shot and edited, and it is expertly crafted. And why that movie was not a huge success, I do not know, but it proved that Chris Hemsworth had some serious chops. He's not just the pretty guy that they strap armor on and have him swing a hammer around. He's the real deal. He's a real talent to contend with. So anyway, back to Las Vegas. Rusty trying to get Lucky to give up racing. It's dangerous, and she knows that anytime that he comes into money, that he's going to spend it on racing, and it's going to doom their relationship. So she kind of puts the brakes on it, and he's like, baby, I'm racing. And her response is she's going to go on the date with the Count, and this leads to one of, I think, the best sequences in the film, where she's all dolled up. She goes to his room, and he trying to shower her with roses and champagne and food. Unfortunately, Elvis works at the hotel, and he's their waiter for the evening. And
not by accident either, though.
He actively sabotages their whole date. And this part of the movie had me legitimately laughing out loud. I'm not saying it was not like a quick snicker. There is some laugh out loud shit. And the best part is when he's like, tells him, get the hell out of here. Just go. Just send somebody else. And the next waiter that comes in with their food trips over the door and spills it everywhere. Was as Elvis is standing there on his way out the door. And he didn't do anything. It just happened that way. So, yeah, that part legitimately had me laughing. I thought that was a really well done bit. And this is a legitimate romantic comedy. It is romantic. It is comedic, and it's got something going on here. It is not just an excuse to have Elvis sing his next song.
Well, actually, yes, it is. The whole movie is an excuse for Elvis to sing songs. So you're wrong there.
I'm not saying it, but I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. Elvis didn't get cast in this movie as an accident. It is most definitely a vehicle for Elvis to sing, but there's a lot more going on. It's just proof that you know what they got the screenwriter from Meet Me in St. Louis to write this film for a reason.
Yeah.
This is the why because the rest of this
it organically leads into singing as opposed to
It doesn't feel forced. It feels very natural as it's going along, and it works. It just legitimately works. So anyway, Elvis is not going to be able to pay for the motor, and I don't know. I guess for Rusty, you know, Anne Margaret, she's like, okay, good, that's all over with, and the Count is trying to, you know, convince Elvis to come drive for him, and out of nowhere, basically, Elvis's buddy has the money for the engine.
We're skipping ahead because.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because so they have the date and they're still having their fallout. Elvis sees there's a talent show coming up where the prize is supposed to be like around $2,500 or something like that. It's still not be quite enough for the motor, but at least it's a step closer. And that's where we have their big sing off. Well, it's not a sing off, but Anne Margaret she's up first and she does her thing, and it's beautiful. She gets a 10 from the audience meter, and then Elvis gets up there and it's fucking Elvis.
Yes.
You know, fucking burns down the fucking house. He gets a fucking 10, so it's a tie. So it comes down to a coin toss of who really wins. Anne Margaret gets a nice billiards table. Elvis gets a honeymoon for 2.
It is, again, it's funny. It's genuinely funny. The other part about it is Anne Margaret does her number, and it's stunning. It's amazingly well choreographed, and it's beautifully shot, and there's multiple setups and all these crane shots and all this stuff. It's very choreographed. And Elvis, by contrast, it is one shot. The only thing that camera does is pull back slowly. Yep. And the only reason it pulls back is because Elvis is walking up to a showgirl, and then he's dancing with her, and then he walks up to the next show, and he's dancing with her. But it is glorious. It is the epitome of Elvis right here. It is Elvis being cool as fuck, and that's all you need to know. And he's singing this catchy earworm of a song. Once you hear it, it's shit's gonna be stuck in your head for days.
Well, it's Viva Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, it's the title track of the movie. And but one of the best jokes in there is that Anne Margaret does her bit, and there's the guy who's like the manager, and he's clapping away, and the Count is next to her, and everybody else quits clapping, and he's still clapping away, and the Count reaches over and puts his hand on it to stop him from clapping. But then it pays off again when it's the tie, and they decide to do the coin toss, and he flips the coin, and Anne Margaret calls heads, and he goes, "Oh, it's tails. I'm sorry, Elvis wins, and here's the trophy." But they cut back to him, and he goes, "He didn't toss that coin high enough." So it's clever. It's funny. It's amazingly authentic in that bit right there. But yeah, so that puts the end to Elvis's hope of getting the motor in the car in time for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And he agrees that he's going to drive for the Count. And then that's when Elvis's buddy shows up, and he's quit his job, and he's like, "Hey, we don't got to work at this dump anymore. And I got the money for the motor. We're racing, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Where'd the money come from?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." So.
Oh, so they don't explain it.
They do explain it, but they don't explain it until the end of the movie.
Okay, because I forgot what it was. So,
so they get the motor, and Anne Margaret has a lovely little number where she is singing about how she has a rival, and this is the only part of the movie that I thought was stupid. It's the only musical number that I didn't like, and this is the only one that seemed forced. This is the only one that didn't flow for me. It didn't need to be in there. They could have cut it out. It didn't have to be in there. I don't disagree with you. Anne Margaret looks stunning, and it's clever
It's
that
not
she's
a good song though. It is
no,
not a
no,
good
it's
song.
not.
It's
It's
awful. And the fact that you have a woman singing about how jealous she is about a fucking car, it makes the girl seem petty and fucking yeah. It doesn't paint her in a good light at all.
no,
So,
no, not at all.
didn't care for the number. Didn't do anything for it.
I didn't care for the number. Anne Margaret looks amazing in the number. There's no two ways about that. But it is you're absolutely right. This is the number that they could have lopped it right out of the film and gone right into the scene where she shows up with the picnic basket at the garage and tries to lend a hand, and it would have worked better.
Yeah.
I think, and you're right. It does make Rusty seem very petty, very vindictive, very manipulating.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess they put this one in for. I don't know who they put this in for. I mean, other than Anne Margaret needed another, number in there. The other thing about this one,
they're contractually obligated to give her X number of singing things in there. Something, I guess. I don't know. I'm pulling that out of my ass. I have no idea.
Honestly, that's probably exactly what it is. Is that they were obligated to give Anne Margaret X number of solo goes. Solo numbers within the course of the film because, this is Elvis Presley and Anne Margaret. And unlike a lot of later Elvis films, everybody knew Anne Margaret. Everybody knew Elvis Presley. It's not like when we get to, Kissin' Cousins or some of the other movies where it's like, it's Elvis and who the hell is that? So, it's funny that you bring that. But the other thing that I didn't care for about this is that this is one of the numbers in the film where the way they shot it, the set, it almost looks like a stage play set. It does not look like a kitchen. It does not look like a house. It doesn't even look like a hotel room. It literally looks like this was shot on a theater set for a play. And the way that they've arranged it where it doesn't make any sense. There's like this kitchen in this drop down area, and then there's stairs that go up over here and stairs that go up over here, and then a walkway across the top.
Well, I think what it's supposed to portray is that this is a kitchen galley, so it's a kitchen in a boat. Because the dad lives on a boat.
So, but again, it's just I get that, but it seems very artificial.
Yeah,
every other musical number, and I know that like they did not shoot this in real clubs around Las Vegas or anything like that, but they all feel right. They all feel organic. They all feel there, and they're definitely part of the world of this movie. But this one just, you're right. It just seems, everything about it seems off to me. And I love Anne Margaret, and she's gorgeous in this whole sequence. And I love the dance number that she's doing, but the song is bad. You're dead on the money on that one.
No, the choreography was great, and that was a one take thing there too.
Yeah,
she did all that one take, which is fucking amazing because she tightrope walks the rail multiple times and is graceful as a fucking cat. Holy shit, dude!
And she does a blind fall. She does a blind fall off of it onto the couch and has to land exactly right.
One take. What? I mean, obviously, it probably took multiple takes to get that one take, but one take.
Yeah, and this is why you work with professionals. That's what I'm saying. And the irony here is that Anne Margaret looks so good in this and is presented so well in this film, and it makes Elvis look better because it looks like these are two people that are on an even playing field. It's not like he's got one up on her and look what he's bringing to the table that she doesn't have, and he's going to give her. No, these are two people that are right on the same level. And so anyway, Anne Margaret takes the lunch to the garage, and she shows up, and she's going to try and help, and they're rushing to try and get this engine in. And this may be the only time on film that it's asserted that trying to put an engine into a Maserati and it starts on the first time. Because yes, that is a Maserati. It was a real car. It was the real deal, and it's an Italian car, and they actually got it to run on the first go. So, but it's a very comedic take where she's trying to she made sandwiches and she's trying to get them coffee so they can have something to eat while they're working on the car because, she may not like it, but she's going to support her man, and she keeps unplugging tools while they're trying to work on the car. They get the engine in, the car starts, and So he pushes his car out to the starting line, and I was like, I did not remember if they started this, and I was like going, God, I hope they like do the speed racer, like start on the sideline and they got to run and jump into the car. And they did it. And I was cheering. I'm not going to lie. I didn't hold back. I was all like, real men. Woo! So, and, and they're trying, and
they did that up until just, I think it's just recently they stopped doing the running start.
I don't know why. I mean, honestly, it gets you, it makes it less about the machines and more about the racers. And I know that may sound very abstract, but it's just one of those, you know what, you get to see them like tear ass. You get to see physically, how bad do they want this? How much do they know that those few seconds of time running to that stupid car and getting in there and getting buckled in and driving off as fast, how bad do they want it? And that's the physical representation. And yeah, it's a shame they don't do that anymore, because it really does bring a humanity to it. It's not just about the machine and the guys that maintain it and change the tires and refill it. It is about the driver at that point. So I miss that. If there's any racing buffs that ever watch this, bring that back. It was cool. It was super cool. But here's the other thing that I found was interesting. You know what? I'm going to save this tidbit. Anyway, we are then treated to some of the greatest racing footage ever put on film. It is genuinely exciting.
We're treated to a shit ton of car crashes, what we're treated to. So I wouldn't call it racing.
It's racing.
I would call it a lot of expensive cars getting wrecked, and yes, I enjoyed every bit of it.
So and you know, the funny thing is that this goes back to, like, if you're gonna have like an action scene in a movie, make it have stakes. This movie is the perfect example of that. This race is, it's Elvis in an Elvis movie racing a car for Elvis. Of course he's gonna win. But weirdly, even though you know all that in the back of your head, like the wrecks that they show, and not only the wrecks, but like some of the maneuvers, like where he drives up on the wall and goes down and then manages to like turn the car around and get back into the race again. It's genuinely exciting, and there are some like bone-shattering wrecks in this race too.
And brutal wrecks, and most of them are brutal fucking wrecks. Like the hopefully that stunt guy lived.
I just say there is the wreck with the Count. Elvis is driving and he's right alongside the Count, and he sees that the Count's back tire is starting to show a lot of serious wear, and he's pointing down to it. Hey, your tire. The tire goes, the car goes end over end, and you're thinking, wow, that was a hell of a wreck. And then another car comes along and T-bones it while it's laying on its side, and it's like, wow, holy shit, that was crazy. Needless to say, Anne Margaret and the dad and his buddy are all in a helicopter, and they are flying around, and they are watching the race. They are watching Elvis's every move as he gets through this, and Elvis just pulls it out at the very end. He does not win by, like, it's not an obvious blowout. He ekes it out, and it's genuinely exciting. And they cut from that, and they immediately go to Elvis and Anne Margaret, and they're getting married, and they have a bunch of race car drivers behind them holding checkered flags as they come out of the church, and they bust into Viva Las Vegas again at the end, and they show Elvis on the left side and Anne Margaret on the right. No, Anne Margaret was over here. Elvis was over here, and it's phenomenal. And then they flash up the end and Metro Golden Mayer, and we know you just had your fucking face entertained right off of you. Boom! And that's the end of the movie. And it's wonderful.
It was good. I was shocked. I was really shocked. I was very hopeful that I was going to enjoy this, but I had my reservations. I'm not going to fucking lie. I've never seen an Elvis movie ever. I've seen snippets of Elvis movies when I was a kid, and when you're a kid, Elvis ain't fucking cool then, no, not at all. And I think even if I watched this maybe even 2-3 years ago, I probably still maybe wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But since we're here and we're reviewing various kinds of movies. I've developed an appreciation for stuff like this and musicals and the production that goes into it, and it is so well done. And like we said before, when they transition to the musical numbers, very organic except for the one. But other than that, it's all good. But again, too, we have not just the star power of Elvis, but the star power of Aunt Margaret cannot be understated or overstated in this at all. If you had anybody else in there with even just a smidgen, a bit of less talent, it wouldn't have worked. There's no way. Is there, has there been anybody of Aunt Margaret's caliber where she can sing, dance, and act like this?
Like this, yeah, there's obviously some legitimate triple threats, and like Judy Garland, who could act, who could sing, who could dance. Julie Andrews, and everybody remembers her in The Sound of Music. The fact of the matter is, Julie Andrews was a beautiful woman and amazingly talented in every aspect of that. I'm thinking Audrey Hepburn was, sing, dance, and act. So yeah, there were definitely others, and legitimately, the only person I could think of would be someone like Audrey Hepburn. But the thing is, Anne Margaret is so damn pretty. She just, and she's so charismatic.
Yeah.
And like, you see her on screen and you're like going, yeah, I'd act like an idiot if I was in front of Anne Margaret too.
Yeah, that's Hepburn, is you buy the fact that Elvis is tripping over this girl.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I mean, and then that's it. And then I think that's the most important part of it, is that the fact that she can hold her own so well.
Yep.
And yeah,
she is the perfect equal and opposite number to Elvis Presley, and that's really difficult to say. But the fact of the matter is that there's 31 Elvis movies, and I originally thought it was 39. I was doing some reading up before we shot this episode. It's 31. And I've seen a lot of them. I have seen an awful, and big name actresses, but nobody has managed to share screen time with Elvis and not be outshone.
Yeah.
Like Anne Margaret has. I mean, sincerely.
Well,
the funny thing about this movie is you're watching it, and when they do the duets, you don't know who you want to watch more, because Elvis is being Elvis, and he's just, when they do especially the one at the pool, when they are doing that whole duet, that whole scene is magic. And like, fortunately, one of them stopped singing, and you're like, oh, I can watch Anne Margaret now. Oh shit, Elvis is singing. I got to go back and watch him some more. And it just, it works. Everything about it works in this film.
I think that, for me, that is probably the best duet I have seen on film.
So, and as far as like the impact of this film goes, I mean, this was a huge hit. This definitely, Elvis had chops. He was worth, he was like one of the biggest box office draws for a decade.
Yeah.
And, he had done a couple of movies, got drafted, went and served in the military, and then came back, and he did this was one of the earlier movies in that string of films after he had come back. And I do want to watch GI Blues with you, because I personally dearly love GI Blues. It's a great Elvis movie. But it is nowhere near as well balanced as this one is. But this kicked off 10 years, but weirdly, this is also the movie where Colonel Parker was kind of like, no, Elvis is the star. Elvis must be the star. We can't have him doing this. And that's kind of the sad thing about it, is that all the actresses that shared screen time with Elvis after this, they were not on the same caliber as Anne Margaret. So, Anne Margaret was already a star. Her star was ascending, and weirdly, I don't know. The sad thing is that it didn't, Anne Margaret being there didn't take anything away from Elvis in this movie. And I wish that somebody could have slapped the shit out of Tom Parker and let him know, no, this works better because they're on the same playing field, not worse. Elvis did not lose anything. The fact that he, got to run off with Anne Margaret at the end is like, he won. So,
Yeah.
period. But another interesting side note in this is that the race sequence in this film, from Elvis's neckerchief to the helmet to the goggles, this is the inspiration for Speed Racer. This segment in this film is what led to the whole Speed Racer thing, and Trixie following in the helicopter. It's all from Viva Las Vegas.
Yep.
And when you go back and you see the cars, and like there are these really weird organic experimental cars. It's all there. Every element of it is there, from the car accidents to the chopper following the races. So,
And then driving through towns in the middle, like all the different terrain and stuff like that. It was in every Speed Racer. Every Speed Racer race, they're everywhere. It's crazy. And and Elvis's car was obviously the inspiration for Racer X's car, the Shooting Star.
Absolutely.
So some fins, yellow paint job, and a black stripe. Bang.
And
cool fucking
you are
car.
good to go. It was a cool, and I was kind of amazed at how short that car was.
Yeah.
And like when he's driving next to the Count, as they're like neck and neck down there, and like Elvis's head doesn't even come up to the window on the car that the Count is driving. It's kind of crazy.
Really crazy because the car that the Count's driving is really small too.
Yeah.
That's probably the size of a fucking Miata. And
Maybe.
then you got Elvis's car that's even smaller than that. So yeah, he may as well be driving a fucking go-kart with a race engine in it. It's crazy.
A go-kart with a V8 in it.
No, it's a four-cylinder. It's a four-cylinder.
Was it a four-popper?
Yeah. If you look at the engine that they're buying at the very beginning, it's either four-cylinder or straight six.
Any way you want to cut it, the power to weight ratio in that, no matter what, it doesn't matter what motor they stuck in it. That thing, like literally, it's a death trap with four wheels and a lot of horsepower. And that's it. I mean, the other thing is this movie was rated G, and this is a very different time. This was back when a rated G film literally was family entertainment, and it's not like you're going to be bored watching this, because as an adult I don't feel like this movie was pandering or talking down or dumbed up. It was all there. So I am so thrilled that you like this movie. I really am. I didn't know how you were going to go. I didn't know if this was going to be Mike Savage's an Elvis film and is like, fuck, I gotta watch two more of these.
It could still happen though, because I got a feeling that this is the pinnacle. Hopefully, I didn't blow my load here on this movie. Hopefully, the next two are they don't have to be as good, but pretty close. I think we set the bar pretty high here.
We did set the bar high, but honestly, I wanted to start with this one because I think this is the perfect introduction to Elvis movies. And if you can't find something to like in this movie, it's not the movie. It's most definitely not the movie. Yeah. The music is great. The numbers are great. The choreography is great. It's got a solid story. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And if you can't get over yourself for long enough to watch this hour and 30 minutes, it's not the movie. It is really not the movie. So, Mike, what's next?
Well, next in the holiday special is Fun in Acapulco.
And that is going to be coming on New Year's Eve. And
so if you're watching this, it's either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, depending on when you turn it on. This is coming out on Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Kwanzaa. What else we got there?
To all 39 of our subscribers.
Whatever you're celebrating, I hope you're having a great day. And we'll see you guys next time.
So have a very, very Merry Christmas. And I hope you get to enjoy as much time as you can with the people that you care about. So